we are live. Once again, this is the Solvable Mysteries Podcast. You are listening to episode number 45. My name is Juras, and as always, I'm joined by my co host, Glenn Highcove. How are you feeling on this Friday evening for you, man?
Hey, doing great. Looking forward to covering a weird case.
As always, they don't get any weirder than this one, I believe, because this case really baffled me to the point where I don't even think, as of this point, maybe throughout the podcast, I can come up with a solution to what happened here. But like at this moment right now, I still don't have a concrete theory in my head uh, to which I would be leaning towards that would explain what happened to the Jamison family. So if you are watching this on YouTube, by the way, we have a YouTube channel that you could find all of our visuals on. It's called Solvable Mysteries Podcast on YouTube. If you're watching it there, you could see the Jamison family on the screen right now. The Jamison family pretty much consisted of Bobby and his wife Sherilynn and their daughter Madison. Now you could see everyone that I've just mentioned on this image. And without giving too much away in the beginning parts of this podcast, they had mysteriously disappeared, and it all happened on October 8th in 2009. So the family was reportedly considering the purchase of a 40-acre plot of land near Red Oak in the state of Oklahoma, and it was about 30 miles away from Eufaula, also in the Oklahoma state, and I believe they were living in Eufaula pretty much. But at that time, they were actually residents of Eufaula, but they were planning to move essentially in the middle of nowhere, right? It's just one weird thing that we're gonna talk about about in this case, and there's gonna be a bunch of them, right? I don't know, man. Your initial thoughts on this case?
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird. So, yeah, the family sounded like if I understood, like from the research, sounded like the husband and the wife got together kind of quickly, I guess I would say. Like, it sounds like their relationship, they sort of decided to get married and then decided to have a kid in a relatively, I don't know, depending on the person, short period of time. Though I see they were both, their ages were they were a little bit advanced, so maybe that was part of it. Just the clock was ticking, to get on with your life. But it's a little weird because you're going to see themes in this episode, themes about people wanting to, I guess, find solitude or wanting to get away from it all, quote unquote. And it's sort of strange because, like you said, they already came from a pretty secluded, like, small town. Usually it's the opposite, right? The stereotype is usually people from small towns are the ones that are aching to get out there and go see the big city and go experience something different. But like, it feels like the people in this case just had like a real attraction to, like, at least this is what was expressed in the interviews with their friends and family, that for some reason they were trying to get away from it all. Which,
Right.
like if I lived where they lived, I would think I was already away from it all.
Right, definitely. Eufaula has like 2.5 thousand people population. I have the image of Eufaula somewhere. Right, so this is Eufaula. It's pretty much the only good image that I found online. Pretty much all of the other images are of I don't know, barns and shacks. So it's really hard to grasp the city, but yep, this is Eufaula, Oklahoma, and I've mentioned this to you prior to recording. I really thought it was interesting how they have like this golf cart. You can see it in the bottom bottom left corner, my bad, on the screen. And yeah, I guess they're I don't think they have any golf courses, though. You know what I'm saying?
I think for some reason I'm not seeing the visuals.
Oh, you are not, right?
Yeah, let me just make sure.
I think I shared it to you. Okay, so technical
Just in case.
difficulties on our
Yeah,
end.
just in case we don't. I know last time I didn't open my mouth, and I worried that we didn't.
Right.
Get
Tell
it.
me if you see them right now.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So as I've said before, if you could look at the visuals as well, man, there's a golf cart on the bottom left corner of this image, and I'm like, I don't think they're playing any golf in Eufaula, Oklahoma.
Nah,
you know?
yeah. That's just like, you know what I've seen that a lot is I've seen that in like real small communities where it's funny, like those kind of places because everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
It'll almost be like it's kind of cool because like a little golf cart like that is pretty cool if you just want to kind of like cruise around and say hi to people. Because you know what I mean, you're just operating off a battery, so it's not loud. It's like you can kind of just.
Oh man, I'd trade that in.
Yeah.
I'd trade that in, and like for my car, if I could like just drive that around, I would do it.
Oh
you know?
yeah.
Just it seemed like fun. Yeah, but yeah, I don't see any golf like bats. What are they called? Probably not bats.
Oh, golf carts, yeah, or golf bags, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think it's exactly for that purpose. It's interesting that people even have that kind of disposable income. You know what I mean? To just to have
Right.
that. Those things are not cheap.
I mean, the
Not
neighborhood
that
is
cheap.
the neighborhood is pretty nice. The family lived in a. I'm not sure if this is the exact neighborhood. Now, when I say the neighborhood is pretty nice, I mean there are no like it's not like, you know, there are some cities in the US with like small populations that are like dirty, messed up, you know, but it looks like it's well kept. Like the community lives fairly tidily, you know. That's what I'm gathering, you know.
The houses look a little bit like from an older era, but like you stick to your point. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're more recent than I think, but they look well constructed. You know, like nothing looks bad. Like it looks like a very clean, nice neighborhood. Like the roads actually look kind of new.
Right.
If I look at it.
Also, I think, you know, this looks like the type of place where like you could set up a sect. You know what I'm saying? Like this
like
is
a cult.
Yeah, like a cult. Doesn't it look like it was like it looks like if you remove that golf cart from the bottom left corner, you could almost see that these guys are Amish.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it does have like a little more of a rural. Well, I mean, because it is a little bit rural. At least it's so strange. I wonder. I should have looked up what the background is, because a lot of times little towns like that popped up because maybe there used to be like a railway stop there or something, or some kind of natural resources.
In the southeast of Muskogee people, so probably some Indians from the U.S., occupied a large territory including much of present-day Georgia and Alabama. The creek had a village named Eufaula located on Eufaula Creek, near what later developed as the present site of Talladega, Alabama. I don't know, man. It seems like for such a small city, they have like a pretty extensive Wikipedia, so it's probably a historic city as well to some extent, you know. But I guess we could leave it at that. I mean, it's a small city in Oklahoma, nothing there to be seen, I guess, or like talked about any longer. But the family decided to move away, right? So they decided that city or that like town was a little bit too much for them. So they decided to move essentially live in a container, a storage container, and they would set it up in the middle of nowhere near Red Oak, Oklahoma, a town of 500 inhabitants.
Wow.
Yeah, so if I don't get it, I don't think you could get away any farther from anyone than that. That's pretty much
Yeah.
like that, or Alaska or something. So
This is strange. I don't know. I mean, I guess as we get into it, you'll see that like it wasn't necessarily a unified front in terms of doing that, but yeah, it just seems like such an odd, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, like those storage containers, even when they've been like equipped and like, put windows in and whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a super comfy way to live. I mean, those are nice houses that they were just showing. They were just showing us.
Right.
I don't know why I would want to leave that for. Yeah, like I don't know. It's just so strange.
Yeah.
Like though it is worth mentioning. Like, so there is sort of like a subcurrent in America around this where there's this whole like. Have you ever heard of it before? Like living off the grid. That term.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but probably just recently, not during my research for this case, but I have heard about that I guess lifestyle. Yeah.
I always wonder. I wonder how much of that. Like, I wonder before, let's say, the late 1990s, when the internet basically, I mean, the internet didn't start in 1990s, but the late 1990s is when most of America even started hearing about what the internet was, and I guess getting connected and getting exposed to like, where like it used to be kind of hard to get a hold of somebody. Like that used to be a problem.
Right.
It used to be that like you know what I mean, like you actually had to try to catch somebody in their house or use a pager or something to get in touch with somebody if they weren't like, somewhere like where their answering machine was.
Yeah.
And I always wonder if there's any relationship between like this getting off the grid movement, where I don't know if people started feeling like they were getting bombarded or life started getting too complicated, and that's where it came from. But I always wonder like how much, I mean, for sure there were always people that looked to get isolated and looked to get away from. I always wonder too, because like I used to have a friend. Like I remember when we were in college and after college, this friend was like, he was always like anti-big government, anti-big brother. And it's really ironic because like all of his jobs have basically been like working for the government or working for companies that work with the government. So it's so weird. But like the interesting thing was this dude's parents were like super restrictive.
Yeah.
And I always thought like, dude, are you really just mad at your mom? You know what I mean? Like, so then I always wonder with people that are getting off the grid and like are trying to get away from it all. Like, yeah, for sure, there's some stuff that's obnoxious and like, it is kind of cool. Like, some of these people that live off the grid, like it's pretty awesome because they literally like, they're not even hooked up to the power grid. Like they have solar cells. Yeah. Like they get their own water out of a well from pipes or something. I don't know. Like it's a whole thing. Yeah. Like there's kind of a cool aspect to it. But I'm always like, but then what happens like when you have a heart attack? Like is the nearest ambulance? It's the nearest hospital. Like you're just dead, right? You're not gonna make it.
Right. I mean that's part of isolation, I guess. I mean if you have the guts to isolate yourself, well, if you can't take the heat and stay out of the kitchen, if something bad happens, you're on your own, literally, so no one's gonna help you. So there are some consequences for that lifestyle as well. So getting back to this Jamison family, details that I ran into during my research sort of led me to the conclusion that maybe the Jamison family had changed their last names. You know what I mean? Because I felt like they were the Addams family. I'm just making a joke, man. Because they had some weird stuff. They didn't really change their names. There was a whole thing that they may have been scammers. I'm sure you heard about that theory.
Maybe that would make sense then. Yeah, it's just kind of weird that even if you're a scammer, you would think, unless you would like retired, you'd think you want to go someplace. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to make your scam phone calls from the trailer?
I don't think they were. I don't think they were the Indian call center type scammers. I think some people alluded, since both of the parents here that you see, Bobby and Sherilynn, they were both on disability paychecks. So they were receiving disability. So Bobby was getting disability for a car accident that he was in, and it was a really bad one in terms of like the actual crash, because I've read somewhere that he actually got hit when he was driving his car, got hit by like two other cars. So it was like
Right.
two crashes at like almost simultaneously. And he was actually taking pain pills for his back pain. So I really don't know, man. When you get into these car accidents, does your like whole body hurt for like a long time? Because I've never been in one, so that I found it odd that you have to take pain pills for a while.
I've run into this a lot. I know Rogan's touted this too, because Rogan's pointed out. And I've seen this. Like, I'm an old dude now. The thing that I've run into the most, into the most between Rogan's an old dude too. People that get back injuries, or lower back injuries, that seems to be the thing more than anything else, because of just all those muscles and like the amount of pain and nerves there. That's the thing that seems like if you mess up your back, like I've known people that have like I used to have these two different coworkers, two different jobs that like they would they would like aggravate an old back injury. And oh man, they were done. It was like they were. So Rogan always mentions, when it comes to like opioids, some friend he had who ended up like hooked on like pain pills, because it's just like those back things. I don't know. Like I know I've been fortunate, knock on wood, to not mess up my back, but like I've heard that like when you mess up your back like that, you can't do anything. You can't do anything without using your back. So those people are just like in constant pain, and it's like, and then all of a sudden you take a pill, and it's like, oh, the pain is gone. What happened? Like it's like it never happened, So
oh, whoa! So you could definitely get hooked on those.
Yeah, and then it goes. And that's the problem. It's like usually it's something really innocent, like the person never. That it even happened here with a famous radio host who was like, really conservative, really anti-drugs. And then we find out years later, this one guy, this host, took so many pain pills, he went deaf. He lost his hearing.
He was taking pills every hour.
He was taking enough pills to kill an elephant, they say.
Wow.
But like your body adjusts to opioids. So that's why people are able to take that many pills, is because your body.
So you need to keep increasing the dosage, because you're no longer feeling the side effects, right?
Yeah, so that's really it's fascinating, because it's for sure a lot of people never would have ever wanted to be on stuff like that, and it just happens, So yeah, I definitely have, if that really happened, I definitely have sympathy for him in that respect. It does make you wonder, like, how much of the downstream problems in his life happened because of that accident. Like maybe that was just really a major turning point in his life,
Yeah, I mean, so Sherilynn was also on disability paychecks as well, but Sherilynn, I'm trying to find for what reason was she receiving those paychecks. I can't really pinpoint it. I think I definitely know that she was bipolar. She was bipolar. I'm not sure that that's the reason for disability on her end, but yeah.
She may have been claiming some kind of, to your point, some kind of mental disability, because it did seem like it was a little bit I have heard, bipolar, especially if it gets pretty extreme, can be, there's like some, just the other night, like a week ago, I was browsing YouTube, and there's like, now you can see, it's kind of cool, you can see different videos from people that have like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or something like that. Like now for educational purposes, they'll make a video like while they're going through like like maybe a psychotic event or through a massive mood swing, so you can really, and they'll kind of give you like a play-by-play
Yeah.
of what's going on in their head. And it's pretty fascinating because you'll see somebody that like they start off happy, but they can feel like the sad coming on, the
Right.
depressed part coming on.
I mean,
And
maybe
yeah,
maybe this is the case, you know?
yeah, that it's just out of control. And yeah, they said, I mean, the person was saying like literally like they can't hold down a job because they'll be at work and they look normal and they look like people look at them and they're like, well, nothing's wrong with you, and they're like, dude, you don't know what's going on in my head, like something is really like not right now. And you know, like people don't, you know what I mean, if you're not bleeding or something, people don't always take you seriously. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that was her issue.
I mean, I'm gonna, like, as we've spoke here, I've actually on my other monitor, you know, I've actually looked into a really creepy case that could sort of explain what happened here, because it was a really similar case. No one died in that particular incident, but I'm gonna mention it fairly soon. I think you're gonna be quite surprised by what I have set up, but this is gonna be when we do the theories for this case. Now, moving along, so we gave a little bit of a background here. Now, other things to mention, I think we have to definitely mention that this family was, with all due respect to the Jamisons, they were a weird family. I mean, I feel like it's pretty safe to say, and I don't think I'm, you know, being rude or anything like that. Obviously I could probably word it a little bit better, but my English is not, you know, super well equipped with words like scientific words to describe them. So I will just call them weird for now, because the fact that they wanted to move in a trailer in the middle of nowhere, you know, as you've said before, that's kind of cool when you think about it, you know what I mean. But at the same time, it's not what the normal person would do, and if it's not normal, it's abnormal, and abnormal is pretty much weird, you know. So they were weird like that, but they also had a situation where they had this trailer, I assume in their backyard, back in that town in Oklahoma, Eufaula, and it was like spray painted. And I believe Sherilynn, the woman that you see on the left here, she actually spray painted something like "Don't mess with a witch" by killing one of her black cats. On this, but before I know that I just made them seem really weird, but at the same time, just before we delve deeper into this, I will mention that she had a friend that, or I don't know if it was a sister or a sibling or anything like that, but there was this other woman who they sort of had this running joke with each other that they were witches. They were like gifting each other like satanic books. So it wasn't, you know, it could have been just a joke, you know. It's not proven that you know, she really believed that she was a witch, but it was odd, to say the least.
Yeah, it could have been tongue-in-cheek, like you said. I mean, one of the other friends in one of the background videos I watched said that, you know, she did always say that if you don't want anybody to mess with you or bother you, to pretend you're crazy, which, you know, is kind of true.
It's definitely true.
But
yeah.
But I guess, yeah, it wasn't even just the house, as I understand it. She was kind of painting like other things around town, and just, yeah, she said that thing about being a witch and was saying really strange things. And you know, I mean, to me that sounds also like manic behavior. So that's, you know what I mean, that's somebody in a state of excitation. And they're kind of, you know, when you're manic, you feel like you want to do more things. You want to go out there. You're having big thoughts, and, you know, like if she at all was taking that witch thing, it's because she says witch, she could mean it like, you know, a Harry Potter witch, right? She doesn't necessarily mean like worshiping Satan.
Right. I just,
You know,
yeah, I just found one of the images, and you could pretty much see the image here. So I think we could pretty much, if you look at it, what it's actually spelled on the storage container, you could pretty much see that it's witches don't like something killed black. Oh, witches don't like when their black cats are killed, and there are like 3 cats. Black cat killed. It doesn't even make sense, you know. It's not like a structured thing, but I don't know if it was a running joke, then you know it could make sense, you know. I mean,
it's a heck of a joke.
Sense. Also, I think I always find it pretty funny how in these rural places people just have like cars in their backyard without wheels, you know. So it's a running theme, right?
Up on blocks, like that's always the you might be a redneck joke is like that you have like cars that don't work sitting in your front yard. Yeah, so if you have a car parked in your front yard, that's a good sign.
so that's the first sign of them being an interesting family. The other thing is Bobby, he was convinced that there were spirits in their house. So he was convinced that there were at one point another family of like ghosts living with them in their house, and that they also had a child. Now I don't know what gender this child was, that Bobby believed the other family, you know, had the child, but according to Bobby, he told some of his, I don't know, friends or relatives that this ghost's family child actually speaks to their child Madison, and that this ghost family that is living with them, they actually are okay with Charlene and Madison, but they're out to kill Bobby. So that was another interesting detail, and it seemed that this was not a joke. They really believed this stuff.
Yeah, there was like this is one of the kind of that, and plus some of the other odd behavior we're going to describe. That was one of the things I was trying to chase down was, there was like they kept on saying that the child was talking to like a ghost, and then, you know, like their family friends said, oh, well, maybe it's just an imaginary friend or something, which little kids do. But then he said something about like ghosts coming to him on like the roof or something, and just really weird stuff where it's like, what are you like it didn't sound like sane behavior. I mean, we don't really have anything describing him as having like any diagnosed mental issues, other than, I guess, you know, some of what they suspected. But it's pretty odd. Odd stuff.
I'm thinking to myself, have he left out any of the weird details? I mean, there were letters also in their house later on found that, you know, some of these letters or like notes were weird, and some of them stated that, I believe, Charlene wrote those notes, and one of the notes was later on found in the car. Now we're gonna talk about that particular note a little bit later on in the show, but I think there were also weird notes found in their house stating that, I don't know what exactly they stated. I couldn't find this information online. I just know that they sort of alluded to friction in the household, you know?
Yeah, so there was actually, it was, I do know later on in their car, when, you know, there was sort of a pivotal event, there was even there a specific letter found, which was from Sherilynn, and she was just venting, like, pretty horrible stuff. Like, I mean, it was like a letter that was just really full of sort of resentful language about Bobby, and like, oh, you know, like I guess about their life and not being too happy. And I think there were problems because, like you said, he couldn't work, And then there's even because he couldn't work and he had somebody helping him around the house.
Yeah.
There was like something else that happened later on with some weird guy that was in their house that was behaving not just inappropriately but threateningly, and I guess there was a lot to resent. And then like in your moment of depression, because bipolar, you're kind of coming and going with your emotions. Yeah, like she's in the down moment when everything sucks, she's like, yeah, you know what else sucks? And then she just unleashed in this whole long,
right,
like letter. So
since we're already talking about the car, well, they had a pickup truck. They had like other cars, I believe, or maybe not. Maybe I'm mistaking this case with another case. But they had a pickup truck, and so on one day, I believe it was pretty much the October 8th of 2009, they decided to go and check out one of the properties they were planning on purchasing near Red Oak, Oklahoma, another small town, I would say in Oklahoma State. And this is where the mystery begins, because so the family members of this family, I don't know, parents of Sherilynn and Bobby, they actually did not heard back from them for a few days. I believe it was 4 days, but don't quote me on this because the information got a little bit choppy when I researched it. But yeah, so the family doesn't hear about where they are for 4 days now. It had been stated that it was not completely uncommon for this family to just disappear for a few days at the time, but not that for like 4 days. So they don't hear this information back, and they call the police. Now the police starts investigating their disappearance, I guess, and for a while they can't really find anything. But then somewhere along the lines they found their car, the pickup truck, parked near the place where they were actually going to check out the property, the land space that they were about to purchase to place their storage container so that they could live on their own in the middle of the woods. Near that place, they found their car, their pickup truck, just parked on the side of the road, and I have the image of it. Let me just quickly locate it. So this is the car, and this is the only image I could find online, and it's post-investigation image, so you can't really see the crime scene photo because I don't think one exists, because the police investigators initially thought that this was not going to be a vital thing, I guess, so they didn't take photos, or maybe they have but I could just not find them. Could be one of these things. But also, as you can see from this image, it's not on the side of the road, it's in the middle of this, I guess, dirt road, and you also can see a police officer taking a peek inside of the car. From our angle, it's quite hard to see him, but if you look really closely, you could see a man looking inside of the car on the left hand side. So this was their pickup, and yep, so I don't know, you want to take it away a little bit from that standpoint, or?
Yeah, I mean, I just, so there was also, I think there was an interesting itinerary of what was in the car, right? Because they found, this was the other weird thing about them, I guess, given, well, here's the thing. So this is a clue that could go either way, because people that want to live off the grid are often the same kind of people that don't trust banks, and also pay cash, so they don't believe in credit cards, which is, not so bad. I mean, definitely that's financially, a good way to go. Sometimes we charge too much things in this country, but yeah, they find in the car a huge sum of money, something like, wasn't it like $32,000?
Yes,
right?
It was $32,000 in cash, and I just have to quickly jump in on this detail for a few seconds. Some sources state that the Jamisons were not known to carry large amounts of money, but then other sources state that they were known for carrying large amounts of cash. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be leaning towards that they were known for carrying large amount of cash, because that's what the Wikipedia states, and that's what some other credible sources that I've seen stated. But some people on YouTube said that they weren't known for carrying large amounts of cash. So I feel like some people just got it mixed up. So it messed up the information for everyone. The information got diluted. So let's just stick to the fact that they were known for this type of behavior.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, such a risky thing. I have to wonder, like, how did they have so much cash if they both didn't have jobs? So that's a little bit weird to me. Like, you would think at some point you would just be kind of like barely making ends meet, right?
I mean,
so
exactly. I don't know what the disability paychecks are in the US, but it's probably
yeah, they're not that big. Right. Yeah, especially over there. So that's a little weird. That's like one of those kind of things that kind of jumps out at you where you're like, huh, how does that happen? And then, but I mean, I guess what you could say though is, if they were just in the practice of carrying their life savings around with them everywhere, which once again I wouldn't recommend, maybe they thought that they would come cash in hand to like a seller of a house, of a property, and say, hey, here we go, here's your money, write us out a receipt and a bill of sale, and
right. So your line of thinking that they had this money on them because they were going to look at this property and they sort of had the money for the down payment, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if it did turn out to be something else, like if it was, let's say, if they were dealing in drugs or making a drug purchase, or drug manufacturers, I would say, well, that would be a pretty good like they had a pretty good like excuse to be carrying around, you know what I mean?
At the same time, what I wanted to say is that this theory that they had this money for the down payment, it doesn't really work, because some of the research that I did on the back end of this case, I've managed to read that actually they were working with a real estate agent in terms of acquiring that property, or like a firm or something like that, and they specifically told this person that they didn't want them to accompany they told that real estate agent person that they didn't want him or her, not sure the gender of that person, to accompany the family when they were looking at the property. So I think the payments would have to be made not directly to the owners of that land strip, but like to some sort of a real estate agency. But they sort of said, we'll check it out on our own. And I mean, it makes sense. If I was buying property, I definitely don't want a real estate agent trying to sell me the property like non-stop. It's almost it's almost the same as when you go to like a shoe store or like a clothing store, and you're just trying to get the clothes on, and you're trying to do it super fast before those retail people start coming at your face. Does the size work? Did you like that? Maybe you will like this. No, stay. Let me just do my shopping and leave me alone. So I could understand these people,
Yeah, I agree. They just wanted like the no pressure, like let's just talk honestly to each other while there's not someone else like eavesdropping and trying to like sell us something we don't need. Yeah, totally.
Perfect.
I'm with you.
Perfect. So the family is missing, and they're missing for 4 years, man. They're missing for 4 years. But also the police investigators that were in charge of finding out what happened, they did an excellent job, at least on my end of the research. Well, I will sort of dig at their work a little bit, but they sort of managed to man one of the biggest search parties in the history of Oklahoma state. they actually had around 1,000 people combing the area for like 5 mile radius from the vehicle, and they also, I believe, had helicopters as well as dogs and all of that equipment. So it was a really, really big search that did not turn any clues, any indications. I mean, I think there was dogs. So right off the bat, dogs were utilized, I guess, in trying to find out where the family had went. And they actually, this was really creepy. They led the police officers to a water reservoir somewhere, and they started giving really strong signals, like barking, stuff like that, at this reservoir. Now, or like a water. I don't think it was a tank. I think it was like a place where you hold water, something like that.
Yeah,
And
it'd be like almost like a man-made lake, basically.
right, and they actually drained it, and they could not find anything. So that's where the case essentially went cold. But as I've said, only for 40 years. So yeah, any
Yeah,
thoughts?
and the other thing I think we forgot to mention when they went missing,
Yes.
they had even taken, like, the school didn't even know that the daughter was missing because they had taken
Wait,
her out of
what?
school. Like, they said, oh we're gonna homeschool her now. So like that wasn't, what I mean? So yeah, so like that they had done taken all these steps. So everybody really thought like, okay, like you're really gonna do this thing, like you're really gonna go off the grid and go live in this weird thing. So, but then yeah, to your point, there is sort of a development. Well, more than sort of, there is a major development 4 years later because they find the remains of 3 human beings, but they're not in good shape.
If you could look at the map right now on the YouTube page for everyone listening, not on the YouTube platform right now, we're showing the map, and initially how their remains were discovered. Well, it was really odd to me because just some random, I guess, local hunters, were following along a well-known trail. They actually found these remains, and these remains were only, I believe, 3 point something miles away from the vehicle. So that means that the remains sort of fell into the overall radius of the search. I hope I made sense,
Yeah.
because they searched, I believe, a circle of like 5 mile radius, and the remains were found within like 3. I'm trying to get the accurate number right now. I know it's like 3 point something. So whatever the exact number is, the remains were within the circle, and it was along a well-known hiking trail or hunting trail, something like that. So it's really odd that the search party did not find the bodies when they were doing their initial search. However, it was October, and in Oklahoma, from what I've gathered, October is a really wet month, and it's cold, it's rainy. I think the weather was particularly bad on this given incident on that day, and I guess it makes some sort of sense. Maybe the people, because I assume when they're doing a circular search where they have like a certain radius that they want to cover, there's just a bunch of people and they just keep expanding the circle, right? Isn't that how those types of searches work? So maybe some lesser less experienced searchers were trying to find them on this particular area, and they just sort of missed it. And some really well experienced hunters actually found the remains. So maybe that was the case. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to lose faith in these search parties. Every time we do one of these things, it's like, oh yeah, we looked super carefully,
I
and
mean,
then
where's
like the body, yeah,
the dingo ate my baby? Oh my
Take
god.
Away My
Oh my
Baby,
god.
Kaylee
Oh
Anthony,
my god, that one as well.
like just all these like cases where it's like, come on, man, like what? How can it be so hard to find to find a couple of bodies in the woods when you're looking like in such a small area, and then the bodies actually turn up
Turn
right
up
there. It's
turn
like,
up
yeah,
on the road, like I'm not sure if it's like
yeah,
on the road or by the road, but they were not like underground or anything like that, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So that's interesting. So the bodies turn up, and as you've said, the remains are in terrible shape, to the point where the coroner is not able to pretty much give a clear reason of death, you know?
yeah. The bodies are just that much degraded by the weather, and 4 years out there in the open. No wonder. I mean, just between
Yeah,
animals and whatever else,
yeah,
yeah, it did it.
yeah.
It's just what a shame. So, yeah, it's like basically any opportunity to collect valuable evidence is gone, and they have really no idea what happened to them at this point.
Right, so that's the case. And I think now it's about time we jumped pretty much to the theories or the interesting details that pretty much, I hope, sort of
Yeah.
will allude to what actually happened to them. So there's a bunch of
So
theories. Right, I mean, I'll let you
yeah,
take it away.
I'll jump into one right away. So one of the disturbing things that happened in their life was, um, because Bobby couldn't work. Um, he couldn't. He somehow he got hooked up with somebody who needed a place to stay, and the whole thing was like, okay, well, you do some work around the house, and we'll let you stay here in our house. And by the way, I just like to
So
say that's
just a quick
yeah.
interruption. Bobby was the person who allowed this person to live in their estate while they work on stuff, or was it the other way around?
Yeah. So it was like kind of like bringing in a roommate to help work on stuff in the house because his
Right,
back
but
hurts.
oh, okay, so I get it. So
Yeah.
Bobby invited someone, not someone invited Bobby, you know?
Right. Bobby
Exactly.
invites somebody,
Right.
and I don't know how well he knew this guy. Turns out not well enough, because I'd like to just say in the front end of this, this violates what I call the Jerry Springer rule. Do you know this name Jerry Springer? It's like a TV show.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
I know that.
yeah. I guess he must be internationally famous now.
Yeah, he is.
So like sort of the joke, but not really a joke, on that show is whenever someone brings you on that show, it's never good news. And what I couldn't help but notice, over the couple of decades that show was on TV,
yeah,
and shows like it,
right.
what I always noticed was, if you had a married couple, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever it was, whenever you brought like a third adult into the household, especially if that third adult was not related to either of the other two adults. I mean, it's hard enough when it's like having your brother-in-law and your sister-in-law come live with you or something like that. I mean, there's always tensions, I mean, it's just not enough space. And that's totally normal, right?
It's really bad, yeah.
It's rare that things don't go wrong in some way, even if they go right for a long time. At least here, where we're not used to living with the extended family. But what I noticed was on that show, and I'm sure everyone else noticed too, was that inevitably, either like some kind of love affair would happen, or some kind of tension. I think there's an actual term for it, but it has to do with just when you're around somebody enough, you end up either being attracted to them or interacting with them in that way. It's not even like anything that's strange. It's just a normal I think, primate
psychological,
reaction.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Completely normal psychological reaction. Now, good news is that isn't exactly what happened here, but what happened here was that the male guest started acting inappropriately around Sherilynn when Bobby wasn't around. So as soon as Bobby would get out of there, this guy was essentially coming on to her, trying to initiate something, and I guess she was being a good wife and was not amenable to that at all. But this guy also started saying like just some pretty awful stuff to her. Started saying like racist things about her Native American heritage, and just things where it was like I don't know what this guy was. Maybe it's because he got rejected, he decided to be mean. But just things where it's like, you're going to get kicked out of the house doing this, right? Like the guy, and then
makes no sense, man.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So it actually he ended up upsetting her so much that she actually kicked him out of the house, and she kicked him out of the house like with a gun. So she was known. This is one interesting thing about her, especially her being bipolar. And I'm sure, of course, this is living up to the sort of the U.S. stereotype of being gun-toting. But she was known to carry a .22, and she apparently shot into the ground at his feet to try to drive him off, to let him know, like, hey, don't do this. And I don't know, it's a little bit hazy, but so to kick this guy out of the house.
I heard about the story, and I was wondering, if this was like, is this like an Oklahoma thing?
A Midwest thing, or rural. I don't know. I mean, I think most people in the U.S. get by without having to shoot at their roommate's feet. But I think I definitely would say, though, with someone who's bipolar like that, it's not a good move to antagonize them and upset them and say mean things about their heritage and make them feel threatened in their own home. That's definitely
sell
stacking.
Them a .22.
Yeah. I mean, all these things are like not good ways to interact with your roommates. So he ends up getting kicked out of the house.
Right.
And they were really wondering, like, hey, could this guy have had anything to do with it? And here's the thing. On one hand, he ended up in jail.
Right.
I believe, from what I understand. On the other hand, he was in jail when this whole window happened of when they disappeared.
Okay, so that's a theory. Yeah. That's a theory. Now I'm gonna immediately, the only thing that jumps out to me, like the timing. When was this roommate kicked out? Prior to their disappearance, was it recently? Because if it was like 5 years ago, then it doesn't really make that much sense. But if it just happened like the other week, then this guy is definitely a suspect in my eyes.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and that's I think that's one thing that when there's some of the allegations that happen in this case are that potentially Bobby and Sherilynn are maybe abusing drugs. That's one of the theories. There's no evidence of that, but some of the people that are close to them seem to potentially have those same accusations around them. So it's not
also the police
not coming out of nowhere.
Also the police. They were hell bent that the Jamison family, well, excluding Madison, of course, were drug addicts, particularly meth addicts.
Yeah, because that's apparently the drug of choice for the area. So they're probably running into that all day anyway. So I think that's like the first thing whenever anybody acts weird and manic and then psychotic and then starts disappearing and carrying big amounts of cash and a gun on them, that sounds like the bingo, like meth addict bingo. I've got bingo. So so I mean.
You wanted to say something? Because I want to jump to one of the clips, but I'll let you finish.
I guess just to finish off about that guy. So that's where it doesn't seem like so implausible that it's like, this dude, like how do you know this guy? And for sure, like if he is some kind of white supremacist, like it sounds like he was claiming to be, certainly those gangs are known to traffic in meth. So it is like, how did you know this guy? How did you get hooked up with this dude that he's in your house? And you know what I mean? Like that's so that already makes you kind of question, like, how is this person in your peer group that they ended up in your house? So yeah,
Right.
that's one thing that points to
Right,
it.
right, right. It's a weird situation. Like, why would you even let someone live at your house like that? He's making like
Yeah,
these moves on your wife, and your wife, what, she just doesn't tell you about it, or like she tells you about it, but you're okay with it. But then the
yeah, you
guy
don't
was
like don't
like,
believe
"You're
her.
you're a Native American, like you have Native American ancestry, so you're no good." And then she like starts like shooting at his feet. It's a weird, an odd situation. But now another odd thing. Now I'm not sure if our non-YouTube listeners will see this. So once again, if you're not listening on YouTube, I suggest you jump on it real quick just to see the footage. Now I have the footage right here of the CCTV that captured them on the day of their disappearance, I guess packing things into their pickup right before they left to see that property. Now, we could definitely talk over it because there is no audio on it, and actually there's no even pixels on it. It's a really bad video quality, and everyone was raving about this footage that, oh my god, they look so weird. This does not make any sense. They actually even changed clothes during their packing. They're taking forever to pack the bags inside the vehicle. They're not talking to each other. But
It,
also, but then at the same time, I don't see this footage being super weird. Um, Also, changing clothes. Yeah, if I'm packing something, I I pack the truck halfway done. Then I'm like, okay, we're gonna leave soon, so I'm gonna put on my outside clothes for when I'm outside doing stuff outside. I'm gonna put those clothes on, right? And so it wasn't as creepy as everyone made it seem. Maybe we don't see the actual complete footage because I couldn't find it online anywhere. But from what we can see
yeah,
here, you could barely see anything in here. You know?
it was almost more entertaining listening to that. So like the one I heard to talk about it the most was the police officer. It was almost more interesting, like listening to the police officer talk about it than watching the actual video, because like you said, you can't really tell what the heck is going on. Um, but the way they described it was interesting, at least. So what they were saying was what bothered, I guess, them, and to the point where they showed it to, I guess, psychologists or psychiatrists to ask, like, well, what do you think is going on here? Was, I guess, that what bothered them was, a, like you said, to them it seemed weird that they weren't interacting in ways that I guess they had expected. That they, you would, I don't know how much people are chatting it up and happy when they're packing a truck, but that's whatever it was. It wasn't happening enough for them. But then the other thing
Yeah.
was that apparently they were like packing and unpacking the car repeatedly. So they would like go,
Oh.
yeah, that was a thing where they're like, yeah, this does seem like meth behavior, because they would go and they would put something in the car, and then they would take it back out again, and then they would put it in again, and then they would take it out, and then they put it in. And they're like, what are they doing? Like that. And
Oh,
it's,
I didn't catch that. Yeah, that's
yeah, and it's weird because it wasn't just one of them. Like if it was just one of them, it was like, okay, yeah, maybe somebody's
right.
having some kind of mental issue. But then
Yeah.
for them both to be doing it, yeah, that was where they started getting more disturbed. Where they're like, all right, what's really so, like, just as we were saying, when they asked the psychologist, well, what do you think's going on here? They're like, oh, they're meth addicts, and that was that was their kind of go-to for
Right.
explaining what was
I mean,
going on there. Was that, yeah,
maybe the area was filled with so many meth addicts that at some point you're like, stop. At some point you stop trying to explain actual psychological impairments, and you
just go to
just
that.
sort of go immediately to meth, another meth addict, you know. And I could see
Everything's
that.
automatically meth.
Right,
Yeah,
I could see that, you know. I could definitely see that happening. But maybe they were meth addicts, but also nothing on their home on their pickup truck suggested of meth use. Nothing, like literally nothing. And I don't know what kind of a meth addict keeps their meth setup kit so tidily kept safe, hidden somewhere under a bush or something, that no one ever finds any indication that you're doing meth. You know? What's that all about? I don't know. I don't know if I buy it.
It's true, right? Because usually there's others, like you said, that's a good point. There's other symptoms. There's like things are more ramshackle and scattered all over the place, or like not.
Yeah.
Like there's like symptoms of like disorder, like a disordered mind, and that part didn't necessarily seem to match up with other behavior that you would expect from like meth addicts. So that is a little weird.
Right. So quickly, I just want to say I'm probably ruling out that they were meth addicts because I just don't see the proof. I mean, am I ruling it out? As I've said before, I'm so uncertain in this case that I do have an interesting theory, but lined up. And I think it's actually it's a perfect time for me to like talk a little bit about it. So as I've said before, I have something good planned, right? So what I have planned here is, have you ever heard of a French, I guess, how should I put it? Like French word, or like two words, folie de. I probably haven't, right? So this is what I'm talking about. It translates into the madness of two, and it's a psychiatric syndrome in which symptoms of a delusional belief and sometimes hallucinations are transmitted from one individual to another. The same syndrome shared by more than two people may be called folia Troy, quatre, familia, and things like that. So essentially, when someone goes crazy, mad, they sort of transmit their madness to the other person who lives really close to them, like a family member or a partner or I don't know, something, or a friend. So recent psychiatric classifications refer to the syndrome as a shared psychotic disorder and induced delusional disorder. So, although the research literature largely uses the original name, the disorder is not the current DSM. So these are like scientific terms now. What? So have you, first of all, just give me a brief answer. Have you ever heard about this happening in practice? Because I'm gonna give you a wild example shortly.
No, it was just, I'm trying to think what it sounds like mass hysteria almost. Is that
right? It's like
accurate?
but it's not. I don't know. Mass hysteria, does it originate from one hysterical person, and then everyone catches it, or is it just when a lot of people simultaneously get hysterical? Because what this theory, this not theory, a proven disorder that does exist, and I will give you a wild example. It does exist. It pretty much says that a psychologically crazy person could actually transmit his craziness to the other person if they talk crazy to them for a long time. So, maybe one of them transmitted this craziness. Maybe it was Charlene, because I'm leaning towards Charlene, or maybe I'm not sure. Maybe it was Bobby, because Charlene did that cat stuff on the container. She had the satanic books, but then again, Bobby was like, yo, there's this other ghost family living with us. I've seen them on the roof, so I don't know who gave it to who, but have you, but yeah. So now, that being said, I'm gonna give you a wild example I just found like yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's a case of the Trump family road trip. Not sure if you heard about this, but this has to be the craziest thing I have ever read. Like, this is crazy. So in 2016, the Trump family fled their home and drove 800 kilometers north, and no one knows why. Right? No one knows why they did it. So this is the story. When the Victorian police arrived, so this has happened in Australia, the Trump family's home in Silwan, Victoria, on August 30th on 2016, they found the doors unlocked, a station wagon was missing, but other cars of the family had been left behind and the keys were in the ignitions. Passports, mobile phones, and bank cards belonging to the family of 5 were discovered inside, along with piles and piles of financial and business documents. They were neat and ordered, almost as if someone had been searching for something, police told the Daily Telegraph. By then, the Trumps, Mark, who was 51, with his wife Jacoba, who was 53, and their 3 adult children, Rihanna, 29, Mitchell, 25, and Ella, who was 22, were already hundreds of kilometers into a journey that would spark one of the most bizarre missing person cases in recent Australian history. So all 5 Trumps were ultimately located over the course of the next several days in various locations across Australia, and were all safe but not all well. So they were located in different, so no one knows why they left. They don't know why they left, but then police located them in different areas around Australia following the next day. So the details of the case remain murky, pieced together from information provided by police and cryptic press conferences later given by Michelle and Ella in an effort to satisfy the baffled press and public. So the family members don't know what happened. They don't know what the hell they were doing. It was confirmed via Rihanna's 2017 interview with Women's Daily that a buildup of stress had led to her father suffering a mental breakdown, one so intense that he feared someone was after him and prompted him to flee. So essentially the timeline, I'm not gonna get into the timeline, they essentially went missing, but it's a huge timeline. I don't want to get into all of it. Now, some of the family members of the Trump family were found. I believe the father of the family was just walking around the coastline. I believe the wife, the mother of the family, hitchhiked a ride, and she was catatonic. So Michelle, I believe the youngest son, was just took a train home because he was like, "You guys are wild. I just need to take a train back home." And then the other 2 members of the family were doing some other stuff. So everyone turned out in different locations. No one knows how they did it, but it all led because the father believed that someone was going to kill the family, and they had to rush out of the house. They left bank accounts, money, cars with keys inside of the ignition. So the father pretty much transmitted his craziness onto the whole family. So I'm thinking, could have this happened in the Jamison family case, where, let's say, I would say Sherilynn, since she was bipolar and she was doing that cat stuff, maybe she transmitted her craziness onto Bobby. Then Bobby started seeing ghosts, and Madeline doesn't know what's happening because she's like 6 years old at the time. She's like,
yeah, she's not in charge.
She doesn't know what's happening, and they're like, we need to buy this land in the middle of nowhere, take this storage storage container, and live there, because these ghosts and these cats are not cool right now,
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like almost like a a form of hypnosis.
Right.
In a way, one person hypnotizing the other, and then maybe when the other person starts going for it, the first person is just falling like deeper into their state, and then like maybe they're kind of mutually hypnotizing somebody, and then maybe also some form of like hysteria. Wow, interesting. That's a pretty good theory, actually. I didn't ever think of that, but that actually I'll have to look at the wiki for that later. That does sound like pretty plausible. I mean, certainly some of like the cult stuff you talked about earlier. I mean, that sometimes is almost like a form of hypnosis itself, where like, you know what I mean, that person may be really delusional, believes that about themselves, and then pretty soon like the other people, I mean, you see it even, do you ever watch those videos about like fake martial arts?
Yeah,
where like people think
ones.
they can do like you know, like magic on each other, and then like the people are actually believing it, and they're like passing out and like falling down and stuff, and then finally someone who's not in on it like knocks them out, and they're like, oh, I guess it wasn't working this whole time. But like, for weeks, months, people are like, oh no, this works, and they're like even going along with it, not to be dummies, just because that would actually make sense then, what you described.
They actually believe in it. Yeah.
The thing I was wondering was this. I went down the rabbit hole on this a little bit.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything, because I was like, well, okay, if we're discounting like meth or drug problem or something, and I still think what you described is probably a great theory, because it ties in the mental illness with like something that isn't something that's independent of it, and could happen to even someone that wasn't mentally ill. But the example you gave of the Trump family, that is interesting, because you had like a major person in the household, like a decision maker, like lose their mind, and then everyone else kind of just went along with them, like, because that was what, you know, like he was in charge, right?
Yeah.
So the one thing I was wondering is, well, could it have been anything in the house, like environmental was slowly poisoning them and making them delusional? So you always think of like, the example everybody always thinks about is like lead poisoning, because, you know, like especially for children,
right?
But even for adults, if you get enough lead exposure, it starts to actually lower your IQ. For children, it's even worse. It gives them environmental difficulties. But there's like real symptoms of things like that. Like there's like rashes and stuff that start to happen. There's other things that I think become obvious to people around you. So I wasn't thinking lead, but I was wondering, like, I had to do some research around things like radon gas, which
oh wow,
things like, there's a gas called radon, which like apparently can give you like lung cancer over the long term, but you have to actually set up like special detection things in your house.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, because I've heard about these stories where like there were people were living like with radon gas leaks in their homes, and like within like years they developed cancer without even knowing what's happening.
So I think, and it's not super unusual for things like that to happen, because, you know, like we build houses have foundations go into the ground. There's a lot of stuff underground, you know, there's all sorts of different things that are fermenting, and, you know, like veins of gas. I mean, that's why there's a natural gas industry, right? Because where there's, you know, that's why there's oil, there's all sorts of stuff under the ground. Where there's oil wells, there's usually other kinds of gas deposits. So, you know, that's not actually, just side note, one of the most famous gas explosions in Los Angeles happened, I think, in the 80s on I forget the name of the street. There was a TJ Maxx, I think, like a clothing store, and what happened was, like in this area of Los Angeles, where the La Brea tar pits are, ironically, there used to be a bunch, like you know, 80 years ago, it was like all oil wells. So like, you know, as the oil wells tapped out, you know, they started building buildings on top of it. But like, I used to work down there, and you'd walk down the street. I mean, right now you can walk down the street.
It seems like you've worked everywhere.
Oh yeah, I've worked
It
all over the
just
States,
it
man.
just seems that you've worked
Yeah,
everywhere.
if it was Los Angeles, I probably worked there. Yeah, so yeah, this one part of Los Angeles, it's weird because like the tap water tastes funky, and like you
Oh
walk
no.
around and there's still tar pits, which there's all sorts of fossils in, but like you walk around and you'll smell like fart smells. You'll smell like weird gases
Right.
because literally there's like you'll walk around, there's still tar coming out of the sidewalks. Like at one point, no joke, dude. At one point when I was working down there, they actually brought in oil drilling equipment just to relieve some of the gas pressure from like the middle of Wilshire Boulevard. No joke,
Whoa.
dude.
So
Yeah, like
that thing could have exploded at any second.
yeah, there's just stuff going on under there because there used to be
Jesus.
all this, literally all these animals died there, and that's why there's all this tar and oil. There used to be a river there, etc. So, anyways, this store overnight just built up enough gas.
Oh,
It was
no.
just natural gas, like not
no.
from like a pipe or anything. Yeah, just slowly over the night filled up. And probably it was happening for weeks, but nobody really smelled it,
Yeah.
just because like not everything has a scent, right? And then what happened was overnight,
No.
like a spark started, boom, like the building exploded. So
Everyone died.
I mean, luckily it was overnight, so I don't think anybody died.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was fortunate that it happened, when nobody was in there. But like, okay, so that stuff happened. So then I was researching, and I was like, well, okay, not radon. And I was trying to figure out if any of these gases had psychological effects for
Right.
like long-term exposure, and like unfortunately, I couldn't really find anything that looked like that. Like I also looked at like carbon dioxide,
Yeah.
carbon monoxide, and all of those things. I mean, it's like people might feel nauseous, people might get dizzy or have other effects, but
not like this. Not like
delusions of ghosts and doing weird zombie stuff. Yeah, so like not that. And then the other thing I mentioned, the fart gas smell. So like that's another poisonous gas, as I think it's hydrogen sulfide. So like it's not saying that like when you smell this that's what it is, but one of the gases that has that rotten egg smell is a gas called hydrogen sulfide. And like it can be fatal pretty quickly, like if you get exposed to it. But yeah, it just none of them seem to line up with like just the really weird
right.
behavior, and then wandering off into the woods. Here's the one thing I wonder.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, by the way, I thought there was some kind of accusation about Bobby's father, that he, like we were talking about the meth industry.
No doubt.
I thought there was some kind of. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
There was. So Bobby's father, who was named Bob, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think it was like a shortened name for his son. So Bob was. He knew some people who were involved in the drug game, who would have the ability to kill people. So Bob himself at that time was in really bad shape. He died like 2 months after the disappearance, the Jamison family disappearance. So there are really, it's a stretch to think that he did it himself, because he was in a bad shape. He was not doing that well. But maybe he called one of his like drug buddies and said, kill my whole entire family, because I'm gonna die soon and I want to make sure that they die as well. So maybe that was the case, I'm not sure. But also there's a hole in this theory. If you are gonna kill someone, if it was a hit, then the car would, the pickup, the Jamison family pickup would have to be followed through the woods. Now I have the map here somewhere set up on the woods, right? So this is the general area where it happened. So you can see like this is like thick woods with like small roads, right? So thick woods with small roads. I think if you're being followed by someone, you definitely notice, especially since the pickup was in the middle of this wooded area. That means you would have to be following the Jamison family for a while, for at least like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And there's no way you're being followed by someone for like a half an hour, taking every single corner that you are taking. You know what I'm saying? You definitely notice them. So but yeah, but that was the thing. Now there's one really creepy detail we've almost forgot to mention here, and I have it right here. This, you know what this is, man? I'm showing the visuals. I'm showing a picture of Madison. So I'm not sure if you know what this picture is, but do you know what it is all about?
Was that the one where she was supposed to be like talking to like a ghost or something? No.
This picture was taken on the day of their disappearance, because remember, their phones were found in the pickup truck, and this picture was dated to be taken at the time when they disappeared. So I don't know, man, doesn't this look quite suspicious to you? Is this a normal child behavior, do you think, or is this a child who is scared? The arms are sort of folded in a defensive manner, and this is really creepy because I really can't tell whether or not this is a child who is acting normal, or is this a child who is being defensive. I mean, you have a child, so maybe you could have a better look at it than I have.
Yeah, I mean, it does look weird. It's a little bit of a strange.
This is the only photo found from the day on Bobby's phone.
The whole thing. I mean, the one thing I wonder is, so if someone had done something to them, God, why not take the money? You know what I mean? I mean, given that
the money, the phones, the everything, the car, the everything,
Yeah, it just seems that's a lot of money.
Why would you kill them?
Yeah,
make them walk 3 miles. Well, maybe making them walk 3 miles does make sense, because you don't want. Obviously, if that was the case, then it obviously paid off because no one found the bodies. So
Yeah, how do you even make Bobby walk 3 miles?
Yeah, he could barely do anything because of his back injuries.
The guy can't hold a hammer in his hand apparently, or something,
right.
without having some kind of major backache.
So this right here is the only I guess hole in my theory of madness of two syndrome, because this definitely seems creepy. I mean, I could definitely see this being taken by not Bobby or Sherilynn, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it does seem weird. I just it would take it feels like unless you just didn't know the money was in there, which why would
it was
you
under
check for it?
It was under the seat, so it was not out there in the open.
Not super obvious.
You had to do a little bit of looking, and maybe these people didn't have time.
Wow, I mean, what a if it was something nefarious, what an oversight, right? I mean, they could have had, though maybe that's how they would have got caught, when they turned up flush with cash.
Also, I just really need to add this one detail in. I've researched a little bit into the coroner's work, and it stated that there was an odd hole. It could not be determined what caused the hole, but Bobby's head had a hole in it. So some people theorize that is a gunshot wound, and the theory would be Bobby's shot dead, and then Sherilynn and Madison are strangled and disposed of 3 miles away from their vehicle. So that's the only other viable theory in my eyes: the madness of two, or this. So this detail, as I've said, this one picture, if we had not had this picture, I would say I don't know, probably the madness of two. But now that we can look a little bit closer into this image, I mean, does it look like I'm looking at Madison's face. I'm really trying to make out what does this expression mean? Is this a face where someone is scared? Yeah, I sort of see it. I sort of see someone scared. And the hand position. Kids don't make those. They don't fold their arms like that, like they were like managers at like the docks.
Yeah, it just seemed like somebody. I mean, it sounds like she had, sadly, kind of a little bit of a troubled home life, putting up with these two crazy people that were trying to drag her off to go live in a storage container in the woods. Well, here's the one thing I wanted to ask you then. What do you think, especially given that Sherilynn had a gun?
Yeah.
And given that, kind of the dissatisfaction
Right.
she expressed in her worst moods.
Yes.
I mean, what do you think about the theory that it was some kind of murder-suicide?
Yep, that's the last theory that we almost forgot to mention. So, really good that you brought it up. By the way, another interesting fact prior to that, I've just realized we have not mentioned was that they had a family dog named Macy, I believe, and the dog was actually found alive like 8 days after they disappeared when they found the vehicle. It was malnourished, it almost died, but it was found
Right.
alive.
It was in the truck. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Poor dog.
But that's also an interesting detail. If they left the vehicle on their own accord, if they decided to leave on their own, would they keep the dog inside of the pickup truck? Even though if they had like motivation to get back to the truck like within, I don't know, like a few hours, would you still leave the dog for a few hours? I mean, I've never owned a dog, so I don't know if it's that safe to leave a dog alone for like, I don't know, a couple of hours in the car. Maybe it is. I'm not sure.
No, I mean, it's considered bad practice, but sadly enough people do it.
Right.
There's still plenty of people that do it. I do wonder. Well, see, that kind of, it's weird because like something like that goes both ways. Because on one hand, you're like, well, would the dog, if someone had like tried to kidnap them or force them from gunpoint when the dog had got out or like run off or attacked or, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, made a nuisance of themselves, or maybe they just kill the dog.
But maybe the people who tried to get them out of the vehicle, maybe they didn't go in guns blazing. They were like, I have a spare tire. Can you help me out, guys?
Oh, and then they
they pull out the weapons. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that seems plausible. That really makes me wonder, like, yeah, this one's really troubling because, and unfortunately, like, probably what would have given us the better answers if they'd found the bodies even within half a year. There probably would have been enough evidence, like they would, if the flight, you would have been able to see if there was like a contact burn on like the hole in the head to see, like maybe even who was holding the gun.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like to see what angle it was. And
I get what you're saying, but get this: maybe the bodies were placed after the search was conducted.
Yeah, like dumped out there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is a wild one. This is, as I've said, this Jamison family disappearance case is one of the craziest things I've seen in terms of like how mysterious this whole situation is. I mean, and you have all of these visual cues. You have the photo of Madison with that you literally cannot make a more unconvincing photo than this. That you would, I mean, this is impossible to say if she's happy or if she's scared or what's happening in this picture. You have the CCTV footage, which is weird. You have all of these visual cues, I don't know, it's just super odd. But yeah, as you've said before, murder-suicide. Let's get back to this theory. I think this is the last theory we still have to cover. So you want to take it away from that end?
Yeah, no, I guess I don't have that much to say other than maybe that would explain why, that would be one reason maybe why they were acting. So here's the one funny thing I thought of when they were like, oh, why aren't they talking to each other while they're packing? If they hadn't said that thing about them, about them packing and repacking and unpacking all those things back and forth, like that's pretty weird. So I don't have
no
a
doubt.
super good explanation for that. Other than maybe it still works for my little note here. So I was like, well, what if they just had a fight? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like when I have a fight with my wife, like sometimes like we're not really looking and talking to each other for like the next hour in the house either. You know, like we're not super like eager to talk to the other person. And then the packing and unpacking, I guess the question is who is packing what? Because if they're having a fight, maybe like one person keeps packing something and then the other person just out of spite keeps unpacking. You know, they're fighting, they don't really want to confront it. You know what I mean? And that's why the kid looks so like, oh, here they go again. Like not,
No,
you know,
but
like all
I mean,
you know
I don't
what
know.
I mean? Like
I don't know if this ties up, but it's interesting. I guess what I'm gonna say is that the murder, if the murder suicide situation did end up happening, I would have to say that then Charlene was the suicidee, you know, that she murdered everyone and then she suicide. Why I'm saying this, because Charlene had that pistol. She had a habit of like shooting people at their feet before, you know what I mean?
yeah, and then had that letter that was
She
almost
had
like a
that
suicide
letter
letter.
that stated that I don't want our daughter to grow up in like foster care because you're in jail for attempted murder, and then you're like dead and I shot you or something like that. So she was almost like alluding that she like, why would you write a letter and keep that letter in the car? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. This is not normal human life, you know? This is not normal human
Yeah.
life. Who writes a 7-page letter? First of all, who even writes letters anymore? Like, what is that all about? Who writes a 7-page letter? Keep that letter in the car when you go searching for a property to live in the middle of nowhere in a storage container. Yeah. And then another interesting detail, the pistol was never found. So if this is a murder suicide situation, you would find the pistol.
Was it? I thought it was found. I
No,
thought
it
that
was
was. I
it,
thought they
no, no,
had.
no, no, no. They didn't
No,
find the pistol, man.
22. Why did I think that I heard that they'd found
They
the
hadn't, man.
pistol? Okay.
It was not found. That's why I believe that the murder, if they found the pistol right there, it's over. It's murder
Yeah.
suicide. If they go back searching in those woods and now somewhere in the hole, they like under some rocks they find this pistol, it's over. You know what I'm saying? It is
Right.
what it is. But then again, maybe she did shoot herself in the head. And some birds took the pistol, you know, because I'm sure like some birds like, but this is like a serious theory, man, because like if like birds would some animals would probably go to like probably eat the bodies, that it's a high chance in those woods in Oklahoma someone would show up. Maybe they saw this metal pistol thing, they were like,
Yeah, I can see somebody taking it for
right,
sure. Yeah, or it getting weathered, or like you said, I mean, it could be that she shot them both, and then disposed of the gun somewhere, and then came back to the scene, and then decided to poison herself next to the bodies. I mean, we don't know exactly how everybody perished. So
I mean, yeah, but you know, I think this is the time in this show to actually give our verdict, because we don't want to go for super long just to then think about like different things, because we've already diverted into like the Trump family and that's a whole nother case for the future probably. But yeah, so since there's a lot of information in this case and a lot of uncertainty, and I bet our audience are like, what is even happening in this case, because it's so wild, it has so many turns and so many creepiness and so many weird situations. I think we have to like summarize this whole situation into our, I guess, theories that we are leaning towards. Now I'm gonna say, for me personally, I'm excluding murder suicide because there was no weapon found, and I just I just don't see it. Maybe maybe you could explain that someone shoots the other two people, throws the weapon somewhere away, and then just waits until they die of starvation. But that's just far-fetched. Since there's no murder weapon, I'm not gonna be leaning towards that. So the only two viable theories in my eyes are that they were forced out of their car and killed by someone. This picture sort of that we have been looking for the last, I don't know, 20-30 minutes sort of alludes to that theory a little bit, because in my eyes Madison is not acting like a normal 6-year-old child in this picture, and it's an odd picture to have, but I could be wrong. But then again, why was the money not taken, and why were the passports or things like that not taken from the vehicle? I don't know. So that's the only dig I have at that theory. And then the madness of two, where they just go into the wild. They probably do some more drugs and they do some crazy stuff, and they just die like that. They get lost. They get high on drugs. They get lost and they get cold. They get scared. They don't know what's happening. They just die like that,
Yeah.
It's a mystery. So I'm leaning towards those last two theories. I can't pick out which one is which. Maybe someone in the comments on the YouTube page can actually tell us their own opinions. And now I'm handing the ball over to your court. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like I'm not really going for the drug theory, even though a lot of their behavior seemed kind of crazy and I mean, like I could see why someone would think that, because between the hallucinations and weird delusions and manic behavior and other things like that, like it definitely. The only thing is, it doesn't seem like you said, that there wasn't any other paraphernalia found, and since when, like with all the other things left behind, why would that not be behind, right? So that seems very odd. It seems very undruggish to not have a lot of drug paraphernalia behind. So that doesn't make sense to me. I'm leaning pretty heavily towards either your theory, that sort of hypnosis hysteria theory, or I don't know. I think it almost seems like that letter expressing all those. I almost feel like her letter in the car was like explaining why this happened, and basically her rationalizing, and then there was a murder suicide, and just I don't know how she talked him into walking 3 miles.
I definitely agree with you, because once you bring back the letter, it's like, that's not normal human behavior to write big ass letters about how you hate someone. Now that you've said that, I'm also leaning towards murder suicide. I don't know, man. This is wild. This is really wild. I hope we get answers, but until we do, we just have to keep tabs on the Jamison family disappearance case. And if there's something else that comes up in the future, some developments, we will definitely jump on this case again. But yeah, man, I guess this was the episode 45, right? I mean, anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it. Once again, thanks to everybody for your subscriptions and your great comments. We love the feedback. We'll probably try to change it up a little bit in the future. I know we've been thinking about doing another UFO podcast again. I think we would like to see more bigger numbers for the UFO podcast when we do them, because we do put a lot of effort into them. So we obviously we follow the traffic. So it really comes down to what the audience is interested in hearing about. So we're looking to you to help guide us.
Right, guys, so this has been episode number 45, and I hope everyone enjoyed this show. If you really did like listening to this podcast, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page as well. And then once again, as always, I will tell you to catch us on our episode number 46. There may or may not be a UFO episode in the works. We will see what happens next. But yep, thanks for watching and listening as well, and stay safe.